Welcome to Empowerment Radio. I am your host, Dr. Friedman Schaub, and I have to start the show today with something that will prevent me from getting in trouble with my assistant, who always slaps herself and sometimes me in the forehead after a radio show, because once again, I have completely forgotten, in all the enthusiasm and excitement, to share the information on how to get a hold of me and how to find out more about the work I'm doing. So I'll just going to start that show today with this information. So if you are interested in learning more about my work, how you can overcome fear and anxiety, gain more a sense of confidence, inner peace, how to become unstuck, and how to really transform on a deeper subconscious level, go to the fearandanxietysolution.com. Again, that's the fearandanxietysolution.com. And we have a brand new website with a lot of interactive tools and also great processes that are completely free, that get you started to understand yourself better, to get more to a place of not only hope, but also empowerment, and also to improve your communication with yourself, which is the topic of the show today, conscious communication. Now, let's say someone gave you an incredible tool, something like a magic wand. And now this tool would be so powerful that it can create anything that you want. And it can also destroy everything you have. It just depends on how you use it. What would you do with this tool? Would you just randomly use it and find out, oops, the house disappeared, or oops, there is a castle? Or would you actually practice with this tool so that you are harnessing the skills and the powers that specific tool is giving you? And most of you would probably say, yeah, because there is a risk of, making something kaput that actually I care about. Now, this is exactly what we have inside of us, such a tool. And it is our word. It's the thoughts that we are using. Those thoughts have power. Words have power. I mean, it's in the Bible. It starts at John 1:1, which says in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Now, if you are into the Bible or not, doesn't matter, but I believe there is a long-standing wisdom behind that power of the words, because words can just singularly construct, encourage, and they can also destruct and create despair. Words have the energy and power to help, to heal, and also to hurt and harm and humiliate. Words are incredibly powerful, and we are often much better in choosing the words that we use with others in order to communicate, in order to express ourselves, and often also in order to just connect with those around us. Then we are using the words with ourselves. Now, let's say I would say to you, by the way, you're fat, you're ugly. Why do you even try? Why don't you even listen to this show? Nothing's going to change for you anyhow. And you're stupid on top of it. Well, I hope you haven't turned off the radio by now, but that doesn't feel good, does it? But how often do we say those things to ourselves? How often do we hurt ourselves unconsciously by simply letting that inner communication bubble up from somewhere inside? And we can talk more about where that comes from and what that actually means and what the intention is behind being so mean to ourselves. But the point is, we are doing it, and we are not really stopping ourselves. And often these thoughts have to do with also what we believe. Our core beliefs can be something that really elevates us towards our goals, or they can be the biggest hurdles and obstacles. And this is why today is such a joy to talk about all of those things. How to change beliefs, what it means to have conscious communication, how to get in alignment with yourself, and all those wonderful things we will discuss with my very special guest, which is the international best-selling author, Mary Shores. Mary is the author of Conscious Communication, and she is also a speaker, an entrepreneur, a CEO. She teaches individuals and businesses to fearlessly create their own realities by using scientific methods and practical personal development. It sounds fabulous, and she is fabulous. So welcome, Mary, to the show, and thank you for taking the time to share your insights on conscious communication.
Thank you. It's so excited to be here today.
Well, I was very excited, especially after I read your book, which is just absolutely fabulous, and I can highly recommend it to anyone because it is a book that just really comes from your own experience. I mean, it is a very organically written book that I believe every step that you're suggesting along the way, you went through yourself and you saw the incredible effects it has taken in your life. So let's start with sharing a little bit. Where did this all begin, this journey? Because it wasn't necessarily a happy beginning, how this all started.
Right. Well, I think that I had a very unusual, not the best circumstances right away in life, because when I was just super young, 3 years old, my parents got divorced. My father was a nuclear engineer in the Navy, and he was out to sea 9 months out of the year. My mother was quite unstable and sent me off to live with relatives. So, right away, I'm put into this situation where I'm not really being supported in life. And then when I was around 6, I did go back with my mother, but at 16, she abandoned me again. So I didn't have the best circumstances growing up, but I still had a happy childhood. There were plenty of happy moments. So I was out on my own at 16, and I also had a child when I was 19 who had profound, extreme brain damage. So she was blind, she was deaf, she had lack of oxygen to the brain for over 5 minutes. She lived for a year and a half, and that was a really super stressful time because for that time period, I was living in and out of the hospital, like sleeping on the emergency room floor. I used to have to suction her lungs. I would have to take a thin tube and thread it through her little, baby nostril down to her lungs and turn on this suction machine. And I would literally have to do that every 4 hours around the clock. And, it took a lot of support just to keep her alive. And, so that's what you're talking about when you're saying, didn't come from the best of circumstances. So I felt like I was a person that was on a healing journey for the majority of my adult life. And I really became a weekend warrior when it came to going to self-development or spiritual retreats and workshops, because a lot of these events will advertise like transformation, come to this event and transform. And I really believed that. Like, I believed that if I played full out, that if I went to these events, that it would change my life. And in a way that it did, but it didn't meet my expectation, because at the end of the week or the weekend, I would look back, I would think, well, why do all these other people are jumping around for joy like they've transformed, and I'm still the same person? So it was kind of like an expectation hangover, because I didn't accomplish the goal of transforming. But after 15 years, what I learned is that transformation happens in life in the smallest pivots. So, you can go to a retreat, and I love doing that. I still do that to this day. I'm going to a Hay House event this weekend that's going to be like totally fun. But transformation happens in the small pivots in life and in the daily practices that you build for yourself over time. You create the habits that are going to support the neural pathways in your subconscious to the direction that you want your life to go. And that is the way that you learn how to control what you manifest in life.
Now, you were someone who didn't necessarily have the best self-talk. I mean, you mentioned in your book that you were telling yourself, everything is a struggle, I'm such a mess, and things like that. So when we come back after the break, I want to hear how your self-talk has improved and what you're now saying to yourself and what you can also share with the listeners on what they can do to just turn that, I don't like the expression, but to turn the monkey mind chatter into something much more positive and uplifting. So stay right tuned. We will be right back with Mary and her great work, the Conscious Communication book that she is introducing on the show. Welcome back to Empowerment Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Friedman Schaub, and I'm here with Mary Shores, who is the best-selling author of Conscious Communications. And before the break, we talked about her habit of bashing herself with negative self-talk, just like most of us do from time to time and often without even noticing it. Now, Mary, what did you do when you noticed, oh my God, what am I doing to myself? How do I hold myself back with my thoughts that I'm a mess and nothing will be ever easy for me and things like that? Or did that take a long time for you to even be aware of that?
It took a very long time, and I'm so glad you asked because, I was very stressed for a long time, and I would definitely talk about how life felt like such a struggle, and I would get super visual about it. So I would describe it as like I'm trying to walk down a flight of stairs and someone's kicking the stairs out from under me. And, things just became so unsurmountably stressful. And the example that I love to use when we talk about this that really ties in with the book is that for about 10 years, I was walking around saying that I want to write a book, but I'm not a writer. Now, words are like a mirror to your soul and a mirror to your subconscious programming. So it's very interesting that the words, I want to write a book, it's like you're looking into my soul and you're seeing that written on my soul, that I have the desire to write this book. But the fact that I was saying right after that, but I'm not a writer, is also a mirror to my subconscious beliefs, my neural pathways, and just that somewhere deep down inside, I didn't believe that I had what it takes to write a book. I don't even know what that was. I mean, maybe I thought I didn't have the skill set, or I needed a PhD in English, or that I needed to have big connections in the publishing industry, which I had zero connections. So, when you're aware of those words, that's the first indication that you have some work to do, because don't we all do that? When we want something, like I want to start a business, but I don't have any money. I want to get in shape, but I don't have time to go to the gym. Or, I want a relationship, but nobody ever likes me. So we can have this habit of saying what we desire, and then it's not in alignment with the but that comes after that.
And what do you believe the but reason is? I mean, what do you feel like, where the but comes from?
It's a feeling, it's deep down in your subconscious programming that you are stuck in a belief system that does not support your desire. So like I was giving some examples for myself, like maybe I believed that I had to have a certain education, which is not true. Or I believed I had a belief system that did not support what I wanted, so I had to change my words, which then changed my beliefs, which then change my thoughts, which then make it easier to change my behavior. So the thing that I did was invested in my skill set. So like I'm saying, if I want to be a great writer and I'm getting, for a first-time author, the book has already hit #1 bestseller, and I am getting lots of compliments on the writing style of the book. So I invested in myself, and I started going to writers' workshops so that I could gain that skill set. And that was like the first step. So what you do is you take one step in the direction of what you want to go, where you want to go, because that's what's going to put you in alignment with creating what you want. Because I think we can accept the fact that infinite possibilities exist for us. But infinite possibilities mean that you can create good and wonderful things, but you can also create all the stress and the chaos and the struggle. And it's really in the choices that you make in every thin sliced moment of life that is either going to connect you to the greatness or connect you to the chaos.
Very well said. Now, I believe that what you just said about taking the first steps is really important, because many people don't even see that they are the first steps that lead them to the goal. All they see is the gap between where they are now and where they would like to be, and it feels so big and so far away and so unattainable and also so risky, because there is always a risk of failure, a risk of not being able to get what we want. And I believe that's ultimately part of the reason why this voice that says, oh, don't even try, or you can't do it, or you're not really having the skill set, why this voice is there in the first place, to ultimately prevent us from doing something that could lead to harm, rejection, criticism. So what you just said about taking the first steps that seem to be easier and that seem to be doable, those steps are also very important, because they do create a sense of confidence, a sense of trust, a sense of, oh, okay, maybe it's not that hard. And I can imagine that's exactly what happened for you too, that you gained more and more trust in yourself and more, maybe a trajectory in the right direction, because you were taking small steps and didn't try to go just, in one shot for that big goal and feeling like, oh no, this is too scary to attempt.
It's so true. When I took that first small step and I went to the writer's workshop, whenever you go on a retreat, you have that icebreaker at the beginning where you go around and you introduce yourself to the other people that are taking the workshop. And I remember so clearly the way I introduced myself to the group was so disempowering, because I said, my name is Mary, I'm a CEO, I'm not a writer, I don't even know what I'm doing here. Because in the beginning of that week, I was really intimidated, because a lot of the other people in the workshop were already published authors. The person teaching it was a #1 best-selling author of many books, Cheryl Strayed. And a lot of the people were like screenwriters and playwrights, and so I was very intimidated. And the way I introduced myself was even disempowering. But by the end of that first week, I played full out. I did the writing prompts. I did everything. I took really good notes during that session. And by the end of the week, I wrote a piece about my family, especially about my son, who is on the autism spectrum, and what it's like raising a son with this condition that there's really no rule book of how you interact in the best interest of a child with autism. And I wrote this piece that by the end of that week brought all of those people to tears. And that really, when I got that feedback, that really was like, wow, I am a writer. Wow, people care about this stuff. It was like, wow.
Yeah, that's powerful. Now, do you feel sometimes that it's important to call yourself a writer, or is it more important for you to know that you have an important message that you want to share to others?
Well, during the time that I was writing the book, it was important to me. And I would suggest to the listeners that if you are working on a project, it is very important that you feed yourself with the affirmations that are going to support you in whatever project you're working on. So for me, that was writing a book. For someone else, it could be, creating a foundation, or, we all have different projects and purpose in life. And so what I did was I wrote a page of affirmations every day, and that really helped me. Now, I didn't write things that I didn't feel like were true. So I didn't write, especially in the beginning, like, I am a best-selling author, I am a best-selling author. What I wrote was, let the words flow through me.
Mm.
Bring me ideas. Help me rendezvous with like-minded people. Guide my thoughts in harmony with my desire. And I would write these affirmations over and over. And sure enough, I would wake up with just the right ideas of what I wanted to write about that day. And I would be led in just the right direction. So what I was doing was I was creating neural pathways that were like tying me into my creative sectors of my brain, because that's really what I needed. I didn't need to convince myself like that I was a writer. I mean, I already had a book deal, and I was writing the book. I mean, it really helps you become a writer when you sign a book deal, because you have a deadline. What are you going to do?
Right. But it's interesting the way these affirmations sound. It's almost like you are, sending out a prayer or an intention. Because, many people believe affirmations start with an I am statement or something like that. I mean, who were you addressing those affirmations to? To yourself? To a higher power?
That's such a great question. And, that could open us up to a philosophical conversation that could probably last for hours. Because what is the I am? What is the mighty I am presence? Is it the universe? Is it a God? Is it your in your own mind? Like, what is that? But to answer your question, I think that there's all different types of affirmations. And in the book, I write about 5 different types of affirmations, and I write a little process. I think I call it 3 steps to creating rocking affirmations. And I actually wrote that as a blog too. So if anyone wants to look that up, feel free to go to my website, and on the blogs, you can find 3 steps to creating rocking affirmations. So the thing is, like, you need to figure out what are the things you need to release. Like, what are the things you no longer want to be true? So one of my affirmations was, I release my fear of abandonment. And then I follow that up with an I am statement. I release my fear of abandonment. I am surrounded by unconditional love and support. Now, a lot of people think that when you're doing affirmations, we get these silly, I call them the law of attraction language police, because we start getting these silly rules, like don't say no because the universe doesn't understand no. Have you ever heard that?
Well, actually, I heard it and I believe in it. So I may be silly, but I believe a no is a little bit harder to understand for the subconscious. But, the universe probably is a little bit smarter than our subconscious in that regard.
So here's what I would say about that. That the universe is infinite intelligence. And so the universe or source does not get confused because we said the word no. The universe knows what we want. But you're right, like it's our own subconscious that gets confused. It's our own neural pathways. And what I think is super important, more than the words you choose, is the intention behind what you're saying, as well as it feeling congruent and true. Because if you say something that is not your truth, and there's actually some studies out there that back this up, that when they measure people's brain waves, when they say an affirmation that does not feel true, it actually works against them because it reinforces the neural pathway of the belief that they're trying to change. And what you want to do is you want to create new neural pathways.
Yes, and there's certainly a challenge with that because, like you said, sometimes, and I think you mentioned this in the book as well, sometimes you do have to repeat the things even though you don't 100% believe in them, in order to grow into them. Wouldn't you agree?
And what I'm a big believer in is writing things that you can believe in now. So, like, for example, it was easier for me to write, bring me ideas, because I can believe in that and I can ask for that and I can have an intention that I want and I accept ideas coming to me. And that was easier for me to write. And then as I built that muscle in my mind, and I called myself an idea machine. One of my other affirmations is, I am an idea machine. As I built that muscle and that neural pathway more and more, then I was ready to say I am a best-selling author. So it's like there's stairs that get you there.
Exactly. That reminds me of these first steps that you just mentioned before. Now, you said release the fear. I think that's when it gets a little tricky, because some people only know fear. They only know anxiety, and just that idea of releasing fear and maybe as an add-on saying, I'm finding acceptance or I'm finding peace, that may be really a big step. But it's also something that I believe, I know the study, it's especially that you're mentioning about positive thinking, where some people force themselves to positive thinking and then they're actually creating more stress inside of themselves because of that, than, really getting into a positive mindset. But what would you suggest to someone who does live in fear, the fear of rejection, fear of, abandonment, or just fear of not feeling good enough? What affirmations would you suggest to a person like that? We will talk about this when we come back after the break. Welcome back to Empowerment Radio. We are talking about affirmations. We are talking about conscious communication, how to change your neural networks, how to get your subconscious on track with your desires and not just with your self-protective patterns that may have been valid and important in the past, but ultimately may keep you in survival mode and keep you stuck. If you have any questions for us, for me or Mary, call in at 888-418-6890 or use the instant messenger on the Transformation Talk Radio website. So, Mary, before the break, we talked about what you would suggest to someone who says, my problem is I have fear, anxiety, insecurity. I don't feel good enough. What kind of affirmation has worked for you in this regard? I mean, your issue was also feeling, abandoned and feeling not supported. So, what would you suggest to do?
The first thing I want to say about that is just to acknowledge that every person's circumstances are different than the next person's circumstances. So what works for one person might not be exactly what works for another person. But let's just say if there was a step one to the process, it is that try as best as you can to get really clear on what you want to feel. So one of the examples that I gave before was about releasing my fear of abandonment, and I am surrounded by unconditional love and support. So I have a lot of abandonment in my life, which causes me I have had some abandonment issues. And so once I started saying the affirmation, I am surrounded by love and support, and I was able to perceive my world differently because I realized that I was receiving unconditional love and support, but I just couldn't see it before. Now, there are a lot of ways you can get here. So sometimes you can flip the script of what you say. So when you figure out what your involuntary words are, like, for example, mine when I said, but I'm not a writer, you can just flip that and say, what is the opposite? And then build some affirmations to support that. So if I know what I want to feel is love and support, then I can write the affirmations to support the feeling of love and support. An even easier way to get there is to start a gratitude practice. I feel like every religion, every spiritual practice really starts with the foundation of a gratitude practice. And the reason why that is so powerful is because when you have a daily gratitude practice, you are building neural pathways in your subconscious that are going to allow you to perceive the world differently. And none of this stuff works overnight. I just want to acknowledge that it does make small pivots, and it changes over time. So the first thing that I did was started a gratitude practice. Now, I did that years ago, and within about 45 days, I was beginning to change the way I was perceiving my environment around me.
Yeah. And what did you see, what you haven't seen before?
Sometimes I was seeing that maybe I had some problems in life, but I was seeing that I also possessed the tools to be able to handle that. Or I began to really become deeply grateful for the people in my life, not just my coworkers and my friends, but even the other businesses that I do business with. People in my network, I began to have a deep gratitude towards them. And that allowed me to attract more of those people into my life.
And isn't that interesting? I mean, this is basically on some level what the law of attraction is talking about, but you could also just explain it more simple neurophysiologically, that you do see more that what you really want and what really feels good, and then naturally you search for more of that. You just filter out the things that in the past may have been your reality, because that's all you focused on, which are those things that confirm the negative beliefs of being abandoned or not good enough or rejected. And if you do that, what you did, this gratitude list, you shift your perception and you see more clearly, oh, there are also other examples. Life can be heaven and hell all at the same time, and you just focus on that, what makes you feel more grateful, that makes you feel more movement, or you gain more movement towards that what you want. And I think that is also a way of attracting and creating and manifesting, simply because through the fog of all that information that's out there, you can see through it and see the light that you're searching. Now, you talk a lot about the neural pathways, which I, in many ways, of course, very much subscribe to. But all of that wouldn't really happen with the involvement of the heart. And how important was it for you to not only go for that, goal setting and, moving step by step forward, but also how important was it for you to have a different relationship to yourself, to gain more self-compassion, to gain more sense of self-love and appreciation?
Well, certainly, again, it's all about making these pivots over time. And goal setting is definitely a passion of mine, because I realize the reason why people who set goals are more likely to achieve what they set out to achieve, because it allows you to create a plan, it allows you to stay on track, and there's a lot of synchronicities and miracles that can happen just by creating a plan and sticking to it. In my own life, I really never wrote a big business plan, but I did write these one-page action plans. And I've got a lot of people that are telling me that just by writing out their one-page action plan, they are able to change their lives significantly.
But did it change your relationship to yourself?
Well, I think that for myself, it created a lot of belief in myself, like I can triumph through this. I don't have to live the story of a victim. I can be in the empowerment part of the story. I am resilient, and I know how bold that I am. I'm not afraid to pick up. If I saw Oprah Winfrey on the street, I would not be afraid to walk up to her and hand her a copy of my book.
Should we? Hopefully not. She's not very scary, I think.
Well, but here's what happens. A lot of times we see that opportunity. Let's take Oprah out of the equation. Let's say we're at a party, and we see someone across the room, and we think that person looks interesting to us, or we heard that person is someone that we might have something in common with. But then the fear and the anxiety kicks in, and we start saying, don't walk up to that person. You're going to look stupid. You're going to embarrass yourself. You don't look very good today. I should have wore a different dress. So the opposite of that is the bold that I'm talking about. It's when you're to understand that your greatest manifestations happen outside of your comfort zone.
That's right. That's right. Well, and I think it's, this is why I came to ask you about, your relationship with yourself. And I think boldness is certainly the opposite of staying in the comfort zone and protecting yourself. But I also believe that we cannot really come to a place of peace and harmony if we are not having a little bit of compassion for that victim part of us, that part of us that's a wounded child, the part of us that just feels somehow scared about being that bold and that big and that visible. And do you feel like through your work you gained, maybe loving and compassionate relationship to that aspect of you?
Yes, I think that I write a process in the book. It's called 5 Steps to Break Through Your Breakdown. And in one of the steps, it's a way to create vasopressin in your chemical makeup. And vasopressin is what is considered the love hormone. So you've got dopamine and serotonin, which are like the happiness hormones. And then you've got oxytocin, which is like the love bonding hormone. But vasopressin is just when you feel love towards someone. Like if you watch a story on 2020 and your heart just goes out to them and you feel that level of empathy and compassion. But you can create vasopressin and turn that inward to feel it for yourself. And I've put all that research, I want to say it's in chapter 6 or chapter 7, about the research that supports the vasopressin and how to create this like self-love, self-compassion for your own good, so that when you do make a mistake in life, that you're not beating yourself up for it. Because if your friend made that very same mistake, you would be telling your friend that it's going to be okay.
That's right. That's probably what you tell your son if, he would make a mistake. Just to come from that more loving, caring, compassionate place. So in that process, which is a fabulous process, people can learn to get out of the habit as well, because there is a habit, right, to play the role of the worst judge, the worst critic of yourself, and just creating their more self-compassion is one of the wonderful tools in your book. And another one I wanted to mention, and I know an hour always runs by like crazy. So you mentioned the cleanse and clog process in your book. And what I love about this process is that's such a powerful tool to also be aware of the choices that you're making, because conscious communication is one thing, but then taking action, making those steps out of this communication is really the necessary next step. So what is the cleanse or clog process that you describe?
Like what we were talking about before, saying that, we have infinite possibilities available to us, but how do we connect ourselves to make the possibilities that we want happen, to turn those into probabilities? And I created this really easy process that I call cleanse or clog, which is really saying that everything you do, every word you speak, every action you take, every choice you make in the smallest moments of life are either cleansing you or clogging you. And it's really simple. If the best way I can describe it is to say, if I'm on a diet and I'm looking at a piece of food, all I have to do is ask myself, when I put this inside my body, is it going to cleanse me or is it going to clog me? And what I'm really saying is that everything you do is either creating a greater connection, a deeper connection to the life that you want, or it's driving a disconnection. So and this is true in our relationships, everything you say or you do, every choice you make in your relationship is either creating a deeper connection or driving a disconnection. And the same is true for your career and for your finances and for your spiritual growth and your personal development growth, even for your self-care routine. So I teach a process in the book that makes it super easy for you to realize how your choices are affecting your outcomes.
And that's really one of the processes I was really happy to read about, because it's so simple and at the same time, so clear when you're using it. And how many people are actually constantly having good intentions, but through their actions are sabotaging themselves, where, just it's almost like you have the blueprint, but then you're forgetting, to use the cement to build actually your new life. And that's something that this process is definitely helping with. And now you do have also a free gift for listeners, which, I know that a lot of listeners will buy the book, but also a lot of listeners would love to start right away with doing some work on those processes that you are suggesting. So what is your free offer?
Our free offer is we have a companion guide for the book. It's called the Conscious Communications Guidebook. And it's because the book has got so many coaching exercises in it, the guidebook has the coaching exercises all written out for you journal style, so that you can go through the guidebook while you're reading the book, or, you could do it without the book. But it's 36 pages. It's beautifully illustrated, and it basically outlines every one of the exercises and then tells you what page number you can find it on. So it's like a mini course for the book.
And so people do have to read the book before, or do you feel like they can already benefit from just going through those exercises as they're described?
I think that there's plenty in the guidebook that they would be able to do without having read the book.
Excellent.
Reading the book certainly be awesome, but I don't think that's required.
Now, how can they purchase the book, and how can they, in general, get more information about you?
So you can find me at my website, maryshores.com. It's SHORES. I've got plenty of free offers on the website as well. The book is available all throughout the country in the Barnes & Noble's stores in the self-help section. And it's also available on Amazon.com. And in all the places it's available, the Kindle is on sale right now for $1.99, which is amazing. And or you can grab the paperback.
Now, what would you say if someone is listening to you just in awe and feels like, wow, I just want to get published in Hay House? I know, like her, I do have a book inside of me. And what do you feel like would be the first step? Apart from taking maybe a writing workshop, but what would you suggest as, there are the 3 steps that you can do right now to go from that dream that somehow you may have carried inside of you for 10 years to actually reaching it, just like you did?
Well, if you ever want to do another show, we could probably do an entire show just on getting published and what are the steps involved. The first thing is to write an outline, because what I did was published through Hay House, and I had to write a proposal. And so you can start researching what a proposal is, but it's a document that's about 50 to 60 pages long that's going to have summaries of all the chapters of your book, your marketing plan, lots of things that are about the book. And the proposal writing process in general, I learned from going to a writer's workshop for Hay House, which I'm actually going to a writer's workshop for Hay House this weekend because I'm the speaker there, which is a fabulous dream come true. The thing is that writing a proposal really helps you organize your thought process. And even before you can write a proposal, you can certainly write like a simple outline. What are the things that I want to write in this book? And you can do that sometimes even just by talking to someone about your book ideas, and then just take notes or ask them to take notes, and then you can turn that into an outline.
And what would you tell this person about the beliefs? What would you say, okay, now I know this is, a big step to write a proposal and go to writing workshops, but it all starts, at the twilight of the day when you sit there and bite your nails and feel like, well, maybe I'm just going to eat a cookie because I don't think that I can ever be a writer. What would you suggest to a person like that? We talked about affirmations. They can certainly go through your book and also go through these different processes. But is there some simple method that you would say, this is something that really can help you, whether it's something that you were using or something that you found from others that is helping to get a little bit more of that fuel of motivation and hope inside of you?
Well, the answer is super simple, and it's just to take one step, one baby step. Because when you take one step in that direction, you're going to open up thousands of new opportunities and possibilities for yourself. So rather, if the first step is to sign up for an online course, or it's to, a lot of towns have writing clubs, or even if the first step is just talking about it. Sometimes people want to write a book and they've never even told anyone. So their first step may just be to talk about it with their friends. But just taking one step in the direction of what you want will literally change a lot of things. And it's the first step of beginning to change your belief systems, because that part is going to take some work. You take one step, you move forward, move one thing forward this week, and then next week you move another thing forward. And then a year from now you look back and you've begun to change your belief systems.
Well, thank you so much, Mary. This is all wonderful and very helpful information. And just to add to what you said about the dreams, you had the dream about writing a book and you knew this was a dream that came from your soul. And I think to add to what you said, just listening to the calling of your soul, listening to that, what's inside of you, the dreams you have, that what really turns you on, that what really feels like it lifts you up. Just the thought about it right before you go down into the doubt or in the sense of this is not possible. Just listen more often to that, what you are here to share, that contribution that you came here for into this world, and just believe, whether you're a writer, whether you want to open a business, whether you want to travel, whatever it is, just believe that there is a reason why those dreams and desires are here. And there is a reason for you to feel them so strongly, because this is maybe a big part of your purpose. Just like you, Mary, you probably feel very much in alignment with your purpose, with the work you're doing, and I'm sure the many books and the many things you will do in the future. So thank you for showing up, and thank you for being that voice of wisdom and that light for so many people. And I wish you certainly all the best for the future.
Thank you so much. It's been my pleasure to be here today.
Well, this was a great show with Mary Shores. Again, if you want more information about her and her book, Conscious Communication, go to her website, Mary Shores. What is it? MaryShores.com, right?
That's
yes,
correct.
MaryShores.com. And if you want more information about the work and I'm offering in my book, go to thefearandanxietysolution.com. And that was it. Another show, another really exciting show on Empowerment Radio. We will talk next time. And until then, stay true to your word. Use the power of your inner communication so that you can make the difference in the world that you're here to make. Goodbye.